As a Southern California native, going into the holiday season means two things. First, everyone starts to complain about how cold it is because the weather dips to an unbearable 65 degrees Fahrenheit, which if you ask any Californian is probably about the same temperature Antarctica is at. The second major sign it's the holidays is the constant ads that I'm bombarded with for the dance and musical show known as Shen Yun. This show, which calls itself a celebration of Chinese culture before the rise of communism, is a popular show that has multiple performance groups that tour the world, showing traditional Chinese culture for all to enjoy, and based on the reviews they show of people who have seen the show, it truly seems like a magical performance.
Enchanting, completely captivating on so many different levels.
I feel better about the world. I feel uplifted.
It's just amazing. I don't even know what astounding.
I think it's magnificent. It's magnificent to see another part of Chinese culture that a lot of people don't get to see.
They even got the OG guru Tony Robbins to endorse their show. Now all they need is Grant Cardone and Mr. Knowledge himself to endorse it, and I'll be sold for sure. On the surface, this show seems like a harmless, fun time showing off Chinese culture, but if you do some digging into just who runs the Shen Yun company, you start to realize it's not so harmless after all, and the millions of dollars this show makes every year directly fund a dangerous religious cult led by a man who thinks he's an alien and has the power to levitate and see through walls. Now, the much-loved Shen Yun show doesn't directly talk about their cult during the show, but on their website and other sources, they make it clear they are operated by the religious group known as Falun Gong, or sometimes referred to as Falun Dafa as well. Falun Gong was created in the early 1990s in China by its founder Li Hongzhi.
Falun Dafa is an advanced cultivation system that was created by Mr. Li Hongzhi. It originates from the Falun Dafa cultivation practice in the Buddha school and cultivates Jun Shan Ren, or truthfulness, compassion, forbearance, the supreme characteristics of the universe.
Master Li believes he controls a magical force known as the Falun and has the ability to place this force in your stomach, which if used properly, can harness all the positive energies the universe has to offer.
The Falun that Master has planted at the lower abdominal area automatically absorbs energy from the universe, transforms the energy, and helps a practitioner to practice. When rotating counterclockwise, the Falun emits energy. It can correct all abnormal states and bring salvation to sentient beings.
Now, I personally don't want one of those magical things floating in my tummy, but for followers of Falun Gong, I guess that's not really an issue for them. Master Li claims that to properly harness this power, you must follow his rules for living, which includes daily meditation exercises. Once you harness the power of the Falun, you'll live a near-perfect life, much like Master Li. Unfortunately, this belief has led to many people thinking they can avoid medical treatment when they get sick, and all they need to do is some simple Falun Gong meditations that will heal all of your sickness. This sadly has led to several deaths, which we'll talk about after a brief word from today's sponsor. It seems like in today's modern culture, everything gets sensationalized. On YouTube, if you start watching content on the left or right, the algorithm works in a way to keep you on the platform for as long as possible, and will feed you similar content to what you've previously watched. Unfortunately, that can lead people down a bit of an echo chamber where they only get the same message fed to them over and over. For some people, they may be okay with that, but if you want a way to be able to cut through some of the bias online, a great way to do that is with Ground News, today's sponsor. Ground News is an app and website that gathers related articles from thousands of sources around the world, allowing you to easily compare how different outlets cover the exact same story with additional context on each source. They put everything in one place so you can make more informed decisions. Take, for example, the recent news on New York City Mayor Eric Adams being indicted on bribery and fraud charges. Ground News has gathered more than 300 sources covering the topic, and you can see how media companies on the left and right have decided to cover this story. With election season in the US right around the corner, Ground News is a great platform to be able to cut through the media bias and get an unbiased view of what is actually going on. As someone who covers a lot of scams and outright lies on this channel, I'm more than happy to partner with a company that can help my viewers do the same online and provides my viewers with an actual useful tool to help them get honest news with the click of a mouse. If you would like to try out their great service, check them out at ground.news/Scott or scan my QR code to save 40% on the same Vantage plan I use for unlimited access to all their features. Thanks again to Ground News for sponsoring this video. As I mentioned before, people have died following Master Li's teachings. He claims that doing good things like helping others and suffering for what is right will heal you, and doing what he believes are bad things, like having an interracial marriage, believing in evolution, or engaging with modern science, will hurt you. Because of this, many of his followers abandon medicine altogether in the belief that just doing good deeds is all they need to do to allow Master Li to heal them. One such member was Colleen May, who joined the religious group late in life after losing her husband. Her adult children saw her change after joining the group in many ways, but it wasn't until her health started to fail and she needed to be taken to a hospital that they saw just how much she had actually changed. Her daughter said that she pulled her IVs out, she would spit the tablets at the doctors, they had awful trouble trying to control her blood pressure, her cholesterol, her calcium levels, everything went haywire. And she just, even in the sickness, kept thinking, if I take this, I'm going to be a bad practitioner. Colleen eventually died after several years of declining health, all the time believing if she followed the Falun Gong's teachings, she would eventually be healed. Her story isn't uncommon, as a former member named Ben Hurley, who left the church, wrote in his post they would often hear of older members not seeking treatment and passing away, believing Master Li would heal them if they were good enough followers of his ways. The religious movement is now based out of New York, with a sprawling compound that only members of the cult are allowed to enter. It's on this compound that members of the Shen Yun dance crew train from a young age to become members of the well-loved group. The New York Times did a story on Shen Yun a few months ago and discovered claims that the cult would refuse medical treatment for dancers when their bodies broke down and would subject the dancers to emotional abuse and manipulation to get them to perform to the cult's high standards. Shen Yun, of course, denies the claims the New York Times articles made against them. At this point, some people may be wondering why this cult is allowed to operate in the US and why more people don't know about all the shady practices behind it. In the late 1990s, the Chinese government banned Falun Gong and persecuted people who continued to practice it. Master Li and the cult have used many people's dislike of the Chinese government as sympathy, taking on an enemy of my enemy is my friend approach. While I don't condone what the Chinese government did to them and feel the CCP is one of the worst governments around the world, that in no way makes the Falun Gong cult a good group of people that should be trusted. Another reason you don't hear a lot of negativity about Falun Gong is because of their massive web of propaganda that people don't even know that they run. The Shen Yun musical group is one arm of that propaganda, while they also control YouTube channels as well, like the 2 million subscriber channel China Uncensored. It's important to know that Master Li doesn't directly own Shen Yun or China Uncensored. They're smart by having different members of the cult own and operate these operations, so they can claim they are separate companies, but the cult supports them, and the end goal is to funnel people back to Falun Gong and their teachings. Founder and host of China Uncensored, Chris Chappell, is a member of Falun Gong, and they regularly put out videos on the channel defending Falun Gong as a peaceful meditation group that has done no wrong.
What is Falun Gong? Why, just the gravest threat facing China. Look at them there, standing still, or here, sitting still. Can't someone do something about this menace? There's nothing I'd like more than to treat this issue the way most Western media have, ignore it and hope that it goes away. I mean, do you know how hard it is to report on this stuff? The Communist Party gets a little touchy about Western media reporting on Falun Gong. Even if the Western journalists want to report on it, that puts media companies in a tight spot. Are these companies going to risk getting kicked out of China? Are they expected to risk losing all that money for a poorly understood spiritual group just because it's the right thing to do?
Going back over a decade, China Uncensored has been putting out puff pieces for the cult, with a video on Falun Gong in 2014 getting over 1 million views. I've watched several videos they've done on the group, and never once did I hear them mention that Chris is a member of the group, or that China Uncensored is affiliated with them. Seems like a bit of a conflict of interest to write puff piece stories for the organization and never mention you work for them to your audience. Another arm of their propaganda is the conservative newspaper and website known as the Epoch Times. The company puts out many conservative articles about U.S. national news, so many on the right trust the publication. However, if you dig deeper into their coverings of Falun Gong, you'll once again see nothing but positive articles about what a nice, peaceful meditation group they are, and they are in no way a cult at all. The Epoch Times also frequently runs ads promoting their fellow cult member group Shen Yun as well. The Epoch Times came under fire recently in June when the company's CFO, Wei Dongguan, was indicted on money laundering and bank fraud charges. The Department of Justice said that under Guan's leadership, the Epoch Times had purchased crime proceeds using cryptocurrency and transferred them into bank accounts held by entities affiliated with the Epoch Times. According to the DOJ, tens of millions in money laundered funds were transferred to the Epoch Times bank accounts, inflating its revenue by 410%. The Epoch Times CFO being charged for money laundering is actually one of the first times someone in this cult has faced any serious charges. I think the two main reasons for this is that despite Falun Gong being clearly a cult, it's never really been investigated because they actively dislike the Chinese Communist Party, which aligns with a lot of current Western ideology around the CCP as well. Another main issue is because of how wealthy this cult is. From their musical group Shen Yun, Epoch Times, and other affiliated businesses, they can afford some of the best lawyers, which makes sure anytime some organization looks into them, the lawyers make sure they have all their bases covered. One additional thing I want to mention is that in certain online circles, some people believe that Falun Gong was created and funded with the help of the US government to try and destabilize the CCP in the 1990s. The group did cause a lot of protest in China, and they were immensely popular for a time, which is why the CCP eventually banned its practice, but there doesn't appear to be any solid proof of US involvement in its creation, so as of right now, that's just a conspiracy theory. What isn't a conspiracy is that Falun Gong is undoubtedly a dangerous cult that has led to many people dying because they didn't seek medical help and believed its founder, Master Li, could heal them. His belief that he has magical powers of healing and that he is an alien in human form should make it pretty clear this guy is nuts and not to be taken seriously. Hopefully this video can help shed some light on all the strings of this cult's web. Next time you see an ad for the wonderful musical Shen Yun, just know that if you support that play, you are funding a dangerous cult that has hurt a lot of people around the world and needs to be shut down.